is a little tighter for us.
That's right.
We have to know what's.
Yeah, and a lot of senior citizens and the elderly deal with disability as well, which is
Mhm.
which is a big plank in my platform.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Cost. I remember hearing you speak, or you raised the question at the meeting. I think it was at the Steelworkers Hall where we had they were talking about the ward system.
Yep.
And the issue of cost came up, and whether you're starting out or whether you're a seasoned veteran of politics, cost is a factor. But I guess what I like is that the technology and the social media
Yes.
is starting to make running for one of these positions a little more accessible.
I
You
agree.
don't need the newspaper ads.
That's right.
You don't need the radio ads
Yep.
anymore. Because, and it's not just your generation, it's all generations are using the technology. We all have smartphones.
No, and
I
I
even
agree.
have one now.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
And it's, and as much as we do depend on the newspapers and the radio, they all have Facebook, they all have the internet, and all of their stories are going out.
Well, and the spending limit was about $1 for every person in the ward, so it was around 12,000. When I saw that, I was like, okay, well, I'm not personally going to expend that amount, but at the same time, I felt like that sort of leveled my playing field, because you can, a solid strategy, good social media, engagement, a lot of door knocking, you can make up $12,000. So the fact that the other people are going to be limited sort of helped me more than, you can't have unlimited. It's not like the, U.S. election. You can spend $100 million and you just avalanche the guy. So I felt like that was probably a restriction that would assist me more,
Even the playing field, so.
That's right, and on the other side of it.
The other thing I've looked at, and this is not a good thing, but even in the ward that I'm in Ward 5, and it may have been an anomaly because the Ron Dupuis was acclaimed, so there was no election for.
Similar in my ward as well, yeah.
But in Ward 5, the actual turnout was something like 21%.
Yeah.
21% of the voters actually voted.
Wow.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's like 80% of the people didn't even come out to the municipal vote.
That's right. I think less than half voted citywide, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Citywide it was under 50%.
Yeah.
So, and I'm looking at saying, oh my goodness, I mean, when you take a look at the cost that's involved, I ran for school board in 2010, and I got over 50% of the votes, but there were 2,800 votes for the public school board, covering Ward 6 and Ward 5.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's in the vicinity of almost very close to 20,000 eligible voters. Now, granted, you divide it up between the Catholic system, there's all of the different school boards, but you're looking at less than 30% turnout in Valley East. So we're running into this. Okay, in terms of cost effectiveness, how much are you going to spend to get out to the majority of people?
That's
so
right.
The majority of people aren't going to come out.
That's right.
And so you're really running into this. You've got to find ways of becoming exposed. The radio show, we're hoping that as we're moving forward in the next 4 or 5 months, people will start to turn to this particular time slot, plus the videos that we're going to be taking, and we'll at least be able to say, well, if I want to find out a little bit about Ian Heft, I can go here.
Yeah.
Or you've got your website where you can say, well, you want to listen to me have a conversation with another individual.
That's right.
If you want to sit down
and endorsement
listen for an hour, go ahead if you want.
That's right.
But you have a chance to find out who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where I'm hoping anyway in this campaign that we go from who's got the most signs and who's got the most ads to, well, let's find out something about the person.
You've got sort of a on the ground,
Mm-hmm. You're using
chance
video.
That's right.
Video is becoming huge in terms of today's generation, in terms of marketing and everything. And I really do it. I think it's probably being driven by the youth,
Mm-hmm.
by your generation, and probably being driven by the seniors. Now that's a philosophical discussion that could be held at a university level.
Yeah.
Because I think both of those groups have, I don't want to say a distrust, but they have a little bit of a distrust of
Yeah,
advertising, and they wanna find out who the real
Critical.
person is.
that's right.
And I think when you take a look at a person that's in their 50s and 60s and 70s, they say, I wanna look in his eyes, I wanna hear his voice.
Yeah.
I just don't wanna see a picture
That's
where
right.
it's been doctored. And I
Yeah,
don't wanna
thumbs
see an
up, like,
ad.
yeah.
I wanna hear
right.
his voice. And YouTube videos are perfect.
Yeah.
And so, and your group, you don't trust, I mean, the younger people don't trust advertising because you know that it's just kind of being put on.
That's right.
So you're getting into this YouTube, social media. If my friends share something with me that they like, I'm listening to them because I
That's
like my friends.
That's right. And Twitter and retweets, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So you're not touching as many people as you think,
No,
but you're touching more people than you're aware of.
that's right.
And we're getting back, I like the idea that social media is getting back to word of mouth.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, word of mouth was the only advertising you relied on.
That's right. And if it was good, it was really good. If it was bad, you were
Yeah.
sunk, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think social media is connecting people to the same way as people were connected in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah. On a much wider scale, but
And
there's a lot
fast.
more of us now, right?
And
So
fast.
that's right. We have bigger social
Yeah.
circles, and that's right.
We have 1,500 people on our Valley East Facebook group.
Yeah.
And I tell people, you know what, just think, you wanna blow your mind, just think of each one of those 1,400 people having 200 friends.
That's right.
Now suppose something was so interesting to them that they all
Shared it.
shared this with their friends. Now, they won't all do it,
Dissemination. No, you're
but
right.
if they did it, think of the number of people
Yeah.
in one click that could get.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
And the things that people never dreamed would take off get millions and millions of views too.
Yeah,
So
so it's good. What are some of the other issues? You've got a list of issues on your website. Any others that you wanna highlight?
Well, I think again, working with accessibility is a big issue. The transit, I know there's some issues with the handy transit. We should be ironing out as well. I know when that came in, there was some contract stuff, like just to talk with the provider about how that's being handled. Because right now, if you want to take handy transit, you have to book it 2 days in advance, a day or two in advance, and they have a 2-hour window. So if you want to go at 11, they can pick you up at 1 or 9.
So nothing spontaneous.
That's right. That's right. And you know, a lot of individuals with disabilities can take the current transit system, but depending on their situation, it might not be safe for them to do so because of the infrastructure. Maybe they have low vision, and you know the traffic is so. Handy transit is a safe alternative. So it's important that people who use it can get where they're going. I mentioned in my statement there that I knew a girl told me her mom headed out to the Valley or Hanmer to see her sister, and there was a mix up with the bus. So as soon as she got there, she got a call, hey, we've got to come pick you up in 10 minutes because that's the way the scheduling worked. So she got out there in time to turn around and come back.
Oh, wow.
I know people who work in this end of town have to go to the Kingsway in the morning because the bus has to pick everybody up.
Wow.
So again, streamline things making sense. We think accessibility is parking spots and washroom stalls, but it's more about understanding the day-to-day reality the people face. I mean, I've worked with the Independent Living Center, friends and colleagues of mine. I've had friends that have become disabled very quickly, and it just changed their entire life. And you see these things, and it gets enough to get you angry. You want to make sure that businesses are using meeting their obligations under the AODA too, like for customer service, for employment. The issue with the Ontario Works and ODSP merger, I spoke this in the rally on Tuesday, is that if you're starting to value people and the language is, quote, like from their distance from the labor market, basically that tells you you're only as important as whether or not you can get a job. But there's 800,000 people in Canada who have a disability, and their disability doesn't prevent them from working. Half of them have a university or college education, and they don't have work. So I think we should raise the profile. Instead of pushing people into poorly paying minimum wage jobs and saying, you're distance from the labor market, get out there. You're trying to put people into a job market that hasn't traditionally been hospitable to them in the first place.
Right.
So I think the biggest thing is to pair people with jobs, to look at the efforts of like the March of Dimes, the Why, things that will work one-on-one with an individual with a disability, place them with a job, then follow up. Because it's an issue of the labor market not catching up to the universities and colleges, because we're accommodating people.
And how do we do this as a city council?
Probably just promoting the efforts of the employment things, as well. If the ODSP and OW comes to the municipal level, we're going to be doling it out. We'll be handing it out. So
you're anticipating this could be this is gonna happen, so you wanna be in a
Yeah.
position where you can.
and be on the
provide
social
it.
services committee and work with the people who are receiving it and look at things, because if we're bringing it to this level, I know actually it's at the city level, I believe we do have people work for the city that on the that run with ODSP and OW, right? But if it's changing, this is the chance to really put it in place, because once it's set, it might not change again. So this is the time to set it up.
Yeah, and I mean, I spent my career in education, and one of the interesting phenomena was that sometimes the leaders, the people who are running the system, are so disconnected from the time when they were actually in the classroom
Yes.
that they forgot
Yep.
what it was like to be a student and forgot what it was like to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And you're making all these policy decisions when you really
Right.
are so removed from actually experiencing it. I noticed that you've got you mentioned something about council structure and ward boundaries. Any thoughts on that, or are you just looking at
Well, it just
open to review?
yeah. Well, we should talk about it. I mean, there's a lot of people who think that the current word structure is a little bizarre. I don't know. I think what they were trying to do was take an outer area and connect it with a sort of inner area, right? So a lot of wards have an outlying area plus part of
So we
Sudbury.
had our hand together in the table.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's an interesting thing. I do like the biggest thing when they were talking about the at-large. Basically, I thought of this as a response to the conference we did go to about, like that you mentioned, you saw me at, for ward boundaries, city council structure. I think I like the idea of keeping a ward structure, because, like they say, if you have at-large councillors, maybe all your councillors or most of your councillors will start coming from one area, right? So I like the idea that you have one person in each spot.
Yeah.
I mean, ostensibly, you can run for another award, but it doesn't usually go over it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the provincial requirements are in terms of representation by
That's right.
population. My understanding is that you can't have too much of a discrepancy between the number of people that you're representing, which means that a town like Cape Real would not be able to have its own councillor unless you had enough councillors that each area could have 3,000 or 4,000 people that they're representing.
Even
I
representation.
take the position that might not be a bad thing, to go
Yeah.
up to 18 or 20 councillors. It not
It's hard to
necessarily
say.
is a bad thing
Yeah.
to have more specific representation rather than a larger group, because really, right now, I'll take a look at Ward 5, it's the center, but it covers Valcaron, Pleasant Valley, McCrae Heights, Guillettville, and then it covers that area around LaSalle and Notre Dame, all the way to the tracks and all the way to, up to Notre Dame, up LaSalle. Those are two very distinct communities.
And there's a wide area in between too. Yeah.
So when I look at that, it's like I'm almost like a councillor at large
Feels like it.
in the ward,
That's right.
whereas probably a councillor for the Valcaron part and another councillor for the Hanmer part would make sense, and a councillor for the Sudbury part would make sense. But now you're getting into increasing the number of people around the table. And I'm sure that what would happen is it would take 2 years to discuss what the shape of the table would have to be to fit
Like
another
herding
6
cats.
people.
Yeah.
So we're into this dynamic now of, okay, how do we change it? And I think there's too many people who think, well, just go councillors at large,
Mhm.
which then puts people like yourself and myself that have kind of lived in a particular area
That's right.
at a disadvantage of trying to get exposure.
Yeah. No, I like the ward system. I just think it was an interesting conversation to have, and if the chamber's starting to host that event, and we're talking about maybe a referendum on the next election, if they're talking about this right now, I don't know if they're thinking about that, but I just think it's kind of a good chance to draft.
At least review it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and there were 20 councillors when we had regional government. We had 10
Wow.
from the city and 10 from the outlying area.
Yeah.
And you had a regional chair that
Yeah.
was a tiebreaker. So I mean, it's not as if it's a foreign concept to
Yeah.
have that many people running your government. And maybe if there's that many people, there wouldn't be so many people talking all the time. The
It's a bigger
other
feeling.
issue, you've got another issue in here on the Healthy Community Initiatives
Yep.
Fund. I mean, that's
actually
another,
It's very contentious in the community, but I think I've started to see comments about another councillor who wants slush funds. That's not the intention. I want to bring as much. It was funny because you can't say anything without people jumping on.
Yep.
I said, I want to have an accountable process and manage it through the cans, and they go, well, we don't know the cans are beholden to the the councillor. That's not my intention. I don't want to have much control over what happens with this money. I want to oversee that it gets spent for the right reasons on good initiatives. I just like the idea that it's there because, every ward gets a little bit. Then that there's going to be something happening in each ward. If you take all that money, put it in the central coffers, I mean, some wards might not see a lot of things going on, while others see a lot more. So I think just simply to make sure that, each community has a little bit to spend on things that matter to them, their improvements, their roads, perhaps, their playgrounds, their public spaces, upkeep. I mean, if something needs repair, you can just go to your councillor and have it done without having to go through the whole bureaucratic process. I mean, you want to make everything into one pot, and then you need to repair, playground equipment. It might take you 2 years. So I want to, because I want to keep this money. Obviously, it means I'm corrupt. I don't have enough money to be corrupt, honestly.
no, you're, and I can tell you, I mean, you're in the same boat that I'm in. It's called the Healthy Community Initiatives.
Yeah.
Healthy Community Initiatives.
Right.
And I think what's happened is it's gone away from what its intention was.
That's right.
Where councillors would be involved with their community, would see initiatives that people in the community wanted to undertake and could give them a little bit of a boost.
Yes.
And I do believe that what's happened is councillors have not gotten involved with their communities to know where these initiatives are, to
Yeah.
put the money in the right place.
Yeah.
I take the position that you can start a forest fire with a single match if
Yeah.
you light it in the right place. You just have to know where to light it.
That's right.
And so I've taken a look at some of these, and some of these things have been 25,000 here, 30,000 there. I don't believe that a councillor is really getting into the community unless they can go in and say, you know what, this group really wants to do something and it's a really neat initiative.
Yeah.
They need $1,000. I'm going to distribute it. I'm going to give them $1,000 to help them get this thing started.
Well, and that's why I think it's important to have proposal processes and submit a letter, get a group together, petitions. I mean, not like, it would depend on the amount of money you're asking for. Obviously, if it's a lower amount, you would take less work to get. But for the most part, if the more you can put in writing, then the more you can demonstrate this is how we spent this money.
Oh, you can.
Right.
The other thing is if you're involved with the groups.
Yeah.
If you're meeting with the groups.
Yeah.
If you're out there with the groups. You know what they're trying to do.
That's right.
So you can become part of this.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think if it was structured in such a way that it would almost force councillors to get out into the community to find out
Yeah.
where this can be distributed, and if it was that you could only distribute it in amounts up to $2,500,
At a time. Or,
then you would have to get out.
Yeah.
And if you didn't distribute it, you lose it.
yeah.
Now
Not
what
it carries
happens-
over and
Yeah.
then it gets spent shifty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So I mean, the people will say, well, you're just trying to buy votes and that. Well, no, it's a Healthy Community Initiative Fund. If you put it into a general pot and you have to make applications to city staff,
Yeah.
city staff are gonna be making the expenditures based on what's gonna make it easier for them to balance their budgets.
Yep.
And I don't think that is healthy. And so, you're right. Are you in favor, am I in favor of the Healthy Community Initiative Fund? I would say not the way it's being used now.
That's right.
But do I just wanna say it shouldn't be used at all? No, because at least I know that $50,000 could be used.
Yeah, well, I think it's money in the word. Like, we have money in each area to be spent, in a certain way. And I think also, when we're talking about bringing money to the city, the idea of a proposal process, you always have to think when you have a new initiative, how are you going to pay for it, right? I think for the most part, we can assist a lot of community organizations to bring money into the city by writing proposals, grants, and that's sort of where my strong point is in writing. So if I want to bring money into a community organization in my ward, for example, the cats, the cat stores, and they want to start a spay and neuter clinic, all right, instead of saying, yeah, the city can give you this much money that we may or may not have, I can say, all right, I'll sit down with you and help you write a proposal.
Yeah, great.
And we'll submit, and I'll write you a letter of support as a councillor, and we'll submit it, and we'll try to get. So it's about finding kind of new sources of funding, because as soon as you start talking about money, everyone jumps up and says, "Oh, you're raising our taxes, or you'll have to raise taxes, or you'll have to." But there, and we've been lucky in that our provincial representative's been able to bring money into the community as well. I hope that continues, but it's hard to say. So you need to think outside the box in terms of how you're going to pay for things too.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything in particular that you want to speak about that we haven't spoken about yet?
No, I think everything's on the website. It gets a lot of the issues out there.
Yeah. And I know that you're going to take an opportunity to come in during the course of the next few months.
Sure.
Because the Learning Clinic radio show is it's designed to have the candidates who are running come in and discuss the issues, not so much to promote themselves, but to make the general public more aware of what they have to be considering. Yeah. And I haven't come across too many people that have been in this room and on the show where the issues really are that much different.
Yeah.
The issues are all there. The individuals all have their own positions and ideas, but the positions are not that far apart.
No, it's all about what you place the emphasis on, right?
And to me, I think the emphasis is on the individual you're putting on the ice.
Yeah, that's right.
As a voter, does the person you're going to put in have that intangible that's going to make them able to represent you at the table and create some kind of cohesiveness out there, and not just end up beating a brick wall all the time.
Well, the biggest thing I'd like to, capitalize on or to bring is, when I worked here, it would just be like, you need to know who to talk to get something done. And, you need an appeal or something. And I know there was a student who wanted to write a test and she needed to get something signed. And I heard it's going to take a couple of weeks, it's going to take this, but she wanted to write her test in 2 days. So I was like, all right, look, is the registrar in his office? Yes, walk up to the registrar. He's able to explain it to him. He's able to sign it. I come down with and it was like the quickest appeal in history. The point is you need to know who to ask. You need to know when to kick a little bit. And we built a new testing center. We had a lot of different things going on. So in terms of if something isn't working, you've got to be vocal about it with tact, in the right way. But you've got to keep coming back. And you know what? It's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease too, right? If you do it the right way. So I think
the first one that gets replaced too.
Well, depends. But if the wheel's not broken, you can oil it.
Yeah. Oh no, it's almost like trying to stay on top of the issues today is like trying to change a flat tire while the car is running.
That's right.
It is so difficult, and you're rolling, and it's. So I think whoever gets in there has to be flexible enough to say, there are certain issues that I'm going to say are important to me, but I can't say that there are certain issues that I will never change my mind on.
That's right.
Because it depends on the situation.
Yeah, and you should have a sense of why you believe everything you believe, where that comes from, and then when you know kind of where you stand on that position or why your position is the way it is, then as that develops, you can change too. You can, change your mind, you become like a flip-flopper and you're the devil in politics. But no, it's important to, as the facts change, think about things in different ways.
Things are changing, so you've got the variables to consider. It's been really good, Ian.
Thanks for having me. It's funny, I think I worked for you for 2 years. I don't think we talked this much.
No, we've never talked this much.
It was over the phone. I think I worked for you for a year before I met you. It was really funny.
Yeah. Ward 1, it's going to be interesting next few months. You've got the plan, you've got the website, you know what you're after, you know what you want, but I really do like the idea that you're putting yourself out there as a choice. Now, right now, you're the only choice. You're not going to end up being the only choice, but you're the only choice right now. But it doesn't matter whether you've got 4 people that are running in the same ward, or 5 or 6. you're not running against anybody, you're running for the ward,
Yeah.
and it's up to the people to decide if that's what they want.
For
So-
sure, it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to having you back again.
Yeah.
CKLU is I think one of the best kept secrets in Sudbury, but we're hoping that by having the candidates come on, more and more people are gonna listen because they wanna find out more about the people that are actually running,
Yeah.
and more so, they wanna find out more about the issues. Plus, we will be putting a video of this
Yep,
this
streaming.
show
Yeah,
on your website and on the Learning Clinic website
Great.
and archiving them so that over time, hopefully by the time the election comes up, there'll be 2 or 3 different interviews that people can go to.
and I've got my first one. I was on CKLU a few weeks back. I have that up on the website too. It's www.ianheftward1.ca. And
Perfect.
join the discussion. You know, we can go on
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter. We can get more comments through the Learning Clinic as well and discuss that.
Yeah, those are great. So I want to thank everyone for listening to the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. You've been listening to Ian Heft from Ward 1, running for council in Ward 1, and myself, host of the Learning Clinic, Bob Kirwan. Stay tuned for some music and our next show at 3 o'clock. And again, thank you for listening to the Learning Clinic and CKLU 96.7 FM.
Thanks, that was great.
It's off.